Okay, fans, welcome back to Sports Chat. Back to the UT women's coaching staff.
Well, I can understand Pat Summitt making as much money as she did make because she's been there for 30 years. She did all that, won the championship, but it's the assistants that I can't get. Why we have to pay them so much more than UConn's assistants? And I know that they were former head coaches, but that still doesn't excuse it. And this is coming from in a time when Mike Hamilton's constantly complained about how we lack money to do anything, and how we had to, just a few years ago, had to borrow money from the actual academic side of the school to pay off Coach Fulmer's buyout on his contract. And we're going low on basketball coaches, and we're going low on football coaches, but her staff is making, I think, $800,000 a year more than UConn's, the number 2 staff in basketball.
And who of late have had more success.
Well, I mean, the last 15 years, UConn has been the premier program in women's college basketball. You might not want to hear that, but they've been to more Final Fours than Tennessee. They've won more championships than Tennessee.
They had the streak.
And, 2 back-to-back 39-0 seasons, plus another 15 or 16 games in a row that they've won. But, just because Mickey DeMoss and Holly Warlick were, Lowell coaches or whatever, and Mickey DeMoss is a former head coach, you can't pay her head coaching money. It's just when the money is apparently not there, according to Hamilton himself. And since they lose money on the women's side of the athletic department, and they technically have 2 athletic departments, they simply borrow money from the men's side to pay the women's side.
The women's athletic department has its own athletic director, has its own administrative staff, but apparently they're having to dip into the other side.
Yeah, I mean the men's football and basketball are these profits. Every sport over there now, and on the men's and women's side of the track, everything, they all come from football and basketball, and that's okay. But their coaches and staff is not the number 1 paid coaching staff in the land in any other sport at UT.
Right.
Let alone by far the number 1 paid coaching staff in the land. And like I say, Coach Summitt, I can understand her being the highest paid women's coach herself, but paying her assistants that much is kind of sketchy to me, and especially in the fact that, like I said, from what I've read, Derek Dooley and his assistants, which there are 9 assistants plus Dooley, that's 10 coaches, make around $3 million a year.
At most 5 on the Lady Vols side.
Yeah,
and that's if you count Jenny Moshak, the trainer.
You're looking at, really, most of the pay is Summitt, Warlick, and Mickey DeMoss. And that's where most of that money is going. There's really essentially 3 bench coaches that are making that much money. And, I don't understand it. A lot of people, can say it's fine and everything. Not good, there's nothing you can do. Hearing Hamilton complain about UT not having money to do this and not making money for this, and not even talking to big, high-level coaches for the football job or the basketball job because they frankly know that we're not going to pay.
Right. I mean, the old adage rings true. You get what you pay for.
We're just constantly in a situation where we have to hope that these guys work out.
Again, in Pearl's case, it did.
I mean, it's not somebody they're going to work out. You have to hope they work out because we're going on the low line. And
Conzo Martin, there's a lot of things about him that says, he probably is going to work out.
Yeah, but I hope he does more than just about anybody. But UT should not be a proving ground for a coach in any of the sports. Men's basketball, it made a profit of almost $10 million a year under Bruce Pearl. And football made huge profits.
Football's the most expensive sport out there.
Yeah, you pay a lot, but you get back.
Yeah, I mean, I can't even imagine. I would love to have all the concessions money for 1 year.
Just the figures, everybody was just in shock that Alabama paid Nick Saban $4 million a year. That was almost double what any other coach was making. I think Urban Meyer may have been making $2.75 million or something like that a year at the time, and everybody was just in shock that Saban got paid that much money. But
it's worked out well for Alabama.
Alabama's revenue went way up. Their merchandising went way up. Everything went way up, and they won a national championship and finished 2nd or 3rd. Won the SEC championship. I think 2 SEC championships.
2 SEC titles.
That worked for them. They spent the money, and it worked. I mean, they were in a bad spot. They were on probation. They were all the things you can say about UT or whatever. Alabama was in that same spot. Alabama's a small state. It's smaller than Tennessee. Tennessee has a bigger population than Alabama. They say there's better recruits in Alabama. There probably is to some extent, but still, Saban took that big giant paycheck and he's paid off big time for it.
They got what they paid for, and
Same
like him or
case
no.
with Raleigh, we went on the cheap with Raleigh and hired him out of some school in North Carolina no one's ever heard of, and you got what you paid for with him. And so far, Hamilton's basically he had Pearl work out, and we don't know if Dooley's going to work out or not.
We don't know if Martin's going to work
Kiffin
out.
obviously didn't work out. Kiffin was a coach that he sort of was on the cheap, but most of the money was tied up in getting his father here.
Yeah, I would say for that staff to be so high paid, it was almost, for what that staff made, it was almost all Monty Kiffin.
And you think about it, I'm pretty sure that staff, really, when you think about it being that high paid, it only made slightly more than some of the staff does.
And you had the crazy Cajun Ed Ogeron. Much as I don't like him, he commands a hefty sum.
Yeah, that was a high paid staff, but the head coach himself wasn't that high paid, so it made the total package not be that high. But I think that I don't want to hear Hamilton complaining about money issues after I found that out. That the Summit and her staff make that much while the basketball team loses hundreds of thousands of dollars a year.
Yeah, it just doesn't make sense. But not shocking when you're talking about the administrative side of UT athletics.
We got a little good news this week too, though. Out of Conzo Martin, he got his first commitment. Wes Washburn from Iowa. He's a point guard.
Great point guard from what I've read.
He's really athletic. Somebody said he had a 43-inch vertical leap, and he had an offer from Iowa to come play there, which is a Big Ten school. So it's he's not just some scrub or anything like that. And we desperately need point guards. We lost Melvin Goins and Chris Jones, who's a great recruit. He's a top 40 recruit in the country, and he reconfirmed his commitment to Tennessee and his intention to honor his letter of intent. He has academic issues.
And that, if he has to go play 2 years of junior college, that's point guard we're not going to have.
They never get him. So we're basically looking at Golden, who's sort of a point guard, but he was a sort of a shooting guard too in high school, and Skylar McBee, who's a shooting guard / point guard. That would be our point guards.
And, nothing against those guys. They're not SEC level point guards.
Golden, he could be a good player, but his natural position is probably shooting guard.
And Skylar McBee, admire him. He walked on, got on scholarship. But he's lucky to be on the team.
From what I saw, this Washington kid, he's a true point guard. Really a pass first kind of guy, can get to the rim, do what you need a point guard to do. He'll just be a freshman, but still, you got to have that depth on the roster, just in case Chris Jones doesn't qualify. And Kevin Ware, he reopened his recruitment completely after he was released from his letter of intent. I don't know if he'll come back to Tennessee. He says that he really likes Tennessee, but I think he probably maybe end up at Louisville.
Of course.
I believe he listed Louisville as maybe his #1 school now. But he's supposed to visit Tennessee this weekend. We'll see if that happens.
Speaking of basketball, the Campbell County coaching application deadline has passed. We have some interesting names on there, including former UT Vol John Higgins.
I was ready to say that probably Vic King, who also applied, should have gotten the job.
And Vic would be a good coach for us.
And a lot of people don't like Vic's personality, which I don't understand that really, but he's a successful coach, and he would have been a good coach for this position.
Now, I've said it before and I've said it again. Vic and I had some issues a long time ago. But Vic King is my friend now. Vic has always treated me kindly. I know he's made some people mad, but he's always been good to me, and I've never seen him be overly bad to anybody.
I really can't see how you could possibly justify turning down Higgins.
I can't either. He played SEC basketball at UT. Currently coaching under Jody Wright at Fulton.
He was on the staff last year. Fulton won the state championship.
On the staff this year.
This year they made it to the state championship round and lost to the #1 seed, the #1 team in the state, and eventual state champion in Livingston Academy by 5 points. It was the closest game that Livingston had in the entire tournament.
And
he's the freshman coach. He's the junior varsity coach, head coach at
Fulton.
And he said pretty much admitted, and Wright is as good a coach as you're going to find in high school in East Tennessee. Like Patrick pointed out to me earlier, he was offered the Lincoln Memorial University head coaching job and turned it down to stay at Fulton.
Jody, Carroll boy, grew up here. He was actually a member of Lynn Pierce's first ever championship basketball team. Jody, I would love to have seen Jody come here, but to get a guy that played at UT, that studied under Jody, how can you turn that down?
And Higgins I read an interview with him recently. He said that as soon as he put coaching applications out there, and Jody found out about it, Jody hired him immediately.
Yeah, Fulton.
And put him in
Best basketball school in Knoxville.
Put him in charge of the freshmen over there.
Actually, I would say Fulton's the best basketball school in East Tennessee.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's hard to say different when they've won 2 of the last 3 state championships.
Jody Wright, great teacher. Of course, Higgins said he played under 2 different college head coaches.
For Jerry Green and Buzz Peterson. So Higgins was one of our better players.
And nothing against Green or Peterson. They weren't the most successful coaches, but they had a great year.
Well, Green had a pretty good run. He just didn't get along well with the fans. But John Higgins played in the NCAA basketball tournament. How often can you hire a coach at a high school level who's played in the NCAA basketball tournament?
And it's a no-brainer to me.
Point guard, he's a leader on the floor. I remember in high school, he was a top 60, top 50, top 60 recruit coming out of high school. He's just played basketball for years. He played AAU basketball.
Played pro basketball in Europe.
I believe he played pro in Europe. He's a teacher now. He teaches, last I heard, at the
Alternative Learning Center in Anderson County.
In Anderson County. He's put an application in for this job, and I thought someone else would probably get the job, but and they may still. I really don't see how you could not.
Yeah, a lot of people had Matt Housley pegged as a front runner. I like Matt a lot. Matt Housley is a great coach. Matt Housley is young. He's energetic. He loves basketball. He's did a great job with those kids at Jacksboro. And he would make a good high school coach. But if he doesn't get it this time, it's not like he'll never get another shot at it.
Well, that's the thing. He may be a great coach at the high school level, and he probably will be. And Vic King, we know, is a great coach anywhere he's been. But for the sake of the program, the teaching that you can get, that's a unique position that Higgins has been in, to be a starting point guard in the SEC and
to play the NCAA tournament ball.
NCAA tournament, and to have been coached by Division I basketball coaches. You can say what you will about Buzz and Jerry Green. They've coached at the very highest level of the profession next to the NBA.
And there are people that would actually argue that you get better all-around coaching in college because there's not a lot of defense played in the NBA.
No, that's true to some extent.
But really and truly, John Higgins just has so much upside. Campbell County went outside the box and brought in Myatt. He's got a lot of upside looking at him.
I honestly, I couldn't see how you could turn down Higgins. Just from the point of view, even discounting the fact that he's been on the UT basketball team and been to the NCAA and had that, just to the fact that Wright immediately hired him when he could, and Wright's the most successful coach in East Tennessee.
He's an active coach who the basketball arena is named after. That's how much he means to basketball.
Multiple state champion. He saw him immediately. He wants Higgins to coach his freshmen.
They didn't even know each other. They just had mutual friends, saw the application, and hired him. So, so much upside there. Fans, we're about to wind this segment down. Talk a little bit more Campbell County basketball and a whole lot of spring sports in this next segment. So stay tuned, click on us, and we'll be right back.